Well, hello everyone. Um, First live stream of 2022 because it's the very first race for the 2022 year, and obviously that's extremely exciting. Hey Mason, hope you had fun, bud. It This was fun, and I typically am not right up at the top of fans of the Clash. I don't think I I'm one of those people. I don't. There's no need for this really. There really isn't a need to have the Clash. There's never the Budweiser shootout back in the day was a lot of fun, but there was something different about this in that it didn't feel. Um, this is basically NASCAR going out of their way to try and make some new fans and get some new fans. At the same time, it's very interesting that they've decided to go the LA market and the LA route, because we know that the California Speedway plan was that it was going to be turned into a short track for next year. Now, apparently, those plans are being abandoned. It doesn't sound as if that actually is going to happen, but I am very curious what people thought. Obviously, Mark has said great event, and I would agree. I think that overall, Fox is not very good. Let's be honest. The way that they present NASCAR is very infuriating to me. Too many cuts, too many camera cuts, too much too much Clint Boyer. He was, I don't know what you guys thought, but I thought Clint was awful in this entire event. I thought he was just talking over everybody. I guess he was trying to be funny. Um, he he just didn't. Tony was fantastic, and Tony Stewart has had practice at it. Kyle Busch, when Kyle came in, he was very good in the booth. But man, I will not go out on a limb and say that I thought that Clint Boyer was very good and helped this event at all. Now, obviously, it was Jeff Gordon. If Jeff Gordon was in there, would he be any better? No. Um, it was I thought it was good. It was an event versus being just a race, lots of being bang, some hot tempers, everything. It's exactly that, Mason. It is exactly that. It should have been, it should be what we see. And the reality is that NASCAR needs to go back to this. It, I'm not just saying this because I'm a NASCAR Pinty's fan, but it literally reminded me of the NASCAR Pinty series. It reminded me of short track racing. It made me feel like I want to go to our local racetrack and watch that. And that's what NASCAR should be doing. It should be helping the lower series, the local racing series, by having people say, hey, you know what? I don't want to go see Daytona, Talladega. I want to go see a Martinsville or something local to me. So if you were in Ontario, I want to go see a Delaware Speedway, a Flamborough Speedway. I think, Mason, you had said that it's very similar to Flamborough, and it comes off. I thought it very much was. It was very similar to Flamborough, and I think at the end of the day, some of it was. I think that they'll have to tweak. There's some stuff that I think that they don't need to have. I don't think they needed to have as many heats. I know they did it for 4 for 4, but maybe make it a little more desperate. I think the biggest thing that they should not have included was being able to skip the LCQ. I thought that was ridiculous, because nowhere in racing can you just skip because you're higher in points. That's not, they don't do that. But I'm so desperate to go see the Ontario Sportsman Series, the APC Series, the Super Stocks, and then, of course, the Pinty Series, because I've watched this event. I mean, Graydon knows, we've kind of talked at length on this podcast that we're not the biggest fans of Daytona and Talladega anymore because it is just a wreck 'em up. The racing aspect, if you go back to the early 2000s where you could race in a pack for the entire race and you could finish with the entire pack, maybe you'd have a big wreck at some point, but it wasn't an expectation that you were going to have a big wreck every single time. Well, unfortunately, the last couple of races have all come down to just giant wrecks. This was different because it was a lot of moving. It was a lot of shaking. And one of the biggest things that I think they said on the broadcast that was very noticeable and very true is that if this happened with the previous car, you would have cut tires all over the place and this never would have been able to happen. But these cars look beautiful. I don't think that they sound really that bad either. We'll have to see how they sound in a bigger environment, in a larger track. But they looked great. And I'll be honest, I didn't have an issue with the number placement as much as I thought I would. It just, when the cars are on the track, it really doesn't matter. It's just the aesthetic. I think that's really that bugged me about it. And now all of a sudden we have cars on the track, and we had some good showings in the race this week. Obviously there's a lot to come and we don't really know what it's going to be like week in and week out, but to see a team like Rick Ware Racing win one of the LCQs and Cody Ware be one spot away from making it 2 for 2 compared to, say, Spire Motorsports, and more significantly RFK, who were awful. Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing was absolutely awful the entire weekend. They were slow. They didn't have any pace at all. And they really didn't put much of a good effort in the races either. I mean, it looked like for a hot minute that Keselowski was going to make it based off of everybody else wrecking in front of him. But I'll say, like, he was awful. And who knows if it was just something that they didn't want to wreck cars, and I can definitely see that. I mean, I think that's what happened with BJ McLeod. We know that these teams are low on parts and low on finances, and it's maybe not the best idea to go and junk your car first thing. But for an event that has never happened so far, to have some of that parity is something that's been so desperately needed in NASCAR's top division. It is what's needed. And what the hope is that you can attract so much more attention to the top level of NASCAR so that it filters down and you gain enough interest in the Xfinity series, in the truck series, so much so that those teams can get some big sponsorship and be able to get healthy enough to then move up to the Cup series. That is the end goal, that's what you want. You want to be able to build a racing series that has then helped out all sorts of other racing. And I think we're looking at a very healthy Formula One. We're looking at a very healthy IndyCar. So racing as itself is getting better. It is building. Exposure equals added fans. Mark, you're exactly right. I mean, you would know, you worked in the biggest time in Canadian racing in CASCAR, where you had 50 to 60 cars showing up to make a race where most of them knew they wouldn't be able to make the race, but you got an opportunity. You were in LCQs, or I guess they call them hooligan races, for a good time. And you had to race your way in. It wasn't a given that you were going to make the race. And that's what was so nice about this event, is that you had Hendrick Motorsports, you had RFK, you had Spire Motorsports, you had 2311, you had those type of teams that didn't make the race. And I'm pretty sure if Truex had not taken that past whatever the points LCQ advance or whatever it was called, he would not have made the race. He did not have pace. He was not very good the entire race weekend as well. It was just like Keselowski. But of course, he ended up making it because he took it. This is what this series needs to do. Dale Jr. is not an idiot. Dale Jr. has been advocating for short track racing for the Cup Series forever. And it shouldn't have taken all this time. And they still to be honest, they still haven't done a very good job of getting some new oval tracks on the schedule for 2022. Hopefully for 2023, they'll understand that, yeah, making this series a little bit more like the Pinty series with having road and street courses, with having short ovals, you maybe throw in a dirt race or two in there. Parity brings new fans, changes, it is fresh and exciting, and it builds excitement. That is what's so scary for a lot of fans. It's scary for a lot of sanctioning bodies, but it needs to be done. Markets that you haven't touched before are untapped potential for big revenue, for big return on investment. And I would say that, yeah, there was moments where we did not get a ton of fans tuning in racing. And I think those racetracks are the ones that they need to get rid of. I think if you look at races where you have single file, no passing, 500, 400 laps, unfortunately, those days of racing are over. We're in a time where people's attention spans just aren't there, and the money is not there either. And obviously, there's questionable sponsorship deals. There's questionable deals in general that we've seen with teams that have come up. And you need as much revenue as possible. It is what's crucial to racing. It's unlike any other sport, because unlike any other sport, the teams, they have a rich owner. They can spend as much money on there. It's true, Mark. You can't. I wouldn't say that I'm guilty of it, because I would love to sit and watch a race, because I don't think that there's much appreciation for people when they attend events anymore. When I go up there and I saw the LA Coliseum and there's people chatting and stuff during the concert instead of sitting there enjoying, the music. Obviously, it's the same thing. But racing in general is so reliant on long events. But we've seen in the Pinty series, you don't need a 400 lap race to enjoy it. I'm curious to see what the race distances will be this year in terms of our short track racing, because of that same nature. Obviously you have to spend a lot of money on tires and, repairing cars and travel. This was a great experiment for the Cup Series to make, because I know they focus so much. They focus so much on, well, for years, Brian France and the entire NASCAR top, brass were all about huge stadiums. We have to fill huge stadiums like they had at Bristol for many years. And those crowds are no longer there. They aren't going to be there. It isn't the same sport as it was 25, 30 years ago, and it won't be again. But what you can do is reinvent yourself, which I credit NASCAR for doing. There's a lot of people that were so, I don't know if they were just against it, but this is what a lot of NASCAR fans watch in their local racing. It is short track racing, and it's good. It's exactly what this series needed. Now, do I think that tonight's broadcast or this afternoon's broadcast was perfect? No, absolutely not. I think that they focused too much on creative camera shots, and they if you just I take the G-Force effect. How G-Force TV broadcasts their racing is how I want to see my racing. Just give me a shot of the track, the cars going around the track, and comment on the action. You don't have to be showing drone shots. You don't have to be doing crowd shots are not important. We don't need any of that. Not at all. But overall, a fantastic showing. Whether you agree that the event was great, I think there's tweaks. Obviously, I don't feel that they needed to have such a long heat in LCQs. The LCQs, for example, 50 laps was a long time to have an LCQ heats. same thing. Like I'd say 25 and 25 would have been fine because the amount of cautions that you were going to have for those 25 lap LCQs could very well surpass 50 lap time. That's kind of where they have to consider that aspect. There were some disappointments, though. I'll be honest. Seeing RFK be so bad to start the season, it's really kind of sad that you're not able to see Brad Keselowski in that event. You're not going to see Alex Bowman in it, Kurt Busch. That last heat, there was excitement there. The LCQ was some of the most fun that we had the entire night. I think the actual feature itself, it didn't hit as I think we were hoping it would, but was I still entertained? Yes. NASCAR needs to remember to cut the commercials when you have a short track race. One of the biggest mistakes that they make is not having that side-by-side during every break. The biggest thing that you have to remember if you are a cable network is that streaming services are all the rage right now. So if what you want to put out is a full-length commercial and cut the feed so we don't get to see, is absolutely awful. You can't expect that fans are going to appreciate you turning away when there's only 75 laps until the break. It's irritating because I would like a streaming service where, perfect example, IMSA TV. Mason can talk about that. IMSA TV and the V8 supercars. They don't turn away from the action. Formula One doesn't take a commercial break. You have to stay in the race the whole time. You can't take breaks every 10 minutes for another 5 minutes of commercials that we saw the last time. They have to work on this because IndyCar has done a fantastic job with the side-by-sides. They do it, I think, almost every commercial break. We don't want to miss action. It's a little different when you have baseball and you have hockey. Like hockey has actual TV timeouts. Strung out kid Ty Dillon, I think, hit every card. Yes, he did. He drove like a Dillon. he drove like a Dillon. But I understand why he drove like that. He has reason to be pissed. He had a rocket ship of a car and a good looking car at that. And he's also not, I wouldn't consider him safe at petty GMS. Like, I understand that he's in there. I don't know what the contract status is for him, but he doesn't have money. He doesn't have a huge sponsor behind him. That's why he wasn't in the Cup Series after Germain Racing shut down. He didn't have anybody to help him. And he's got to get some attention because they need sponsorship for that team. And I don't know if even Eric Jones is really that secure at that team either. They're really dependent on money drivers. So I wouldn't be shocked if somebody like a Brandon Jones or I don't think Noah Gragson would end up there. I think Noah's more inclined to take over at Hendrick somewhere, but I can understand why he drove like that. But at the same time, Harrison and Austin Cindric all drove insane in those heats, and especially the LCQs. It was a very entertaining event. And I think that if they can get the broadcaster right, if they can get the right team, I totally understand that they put Clint Boyer in there. And I was a big fan of Clint last year. I thought Clint was pretty good and he added some excitement, but when you get somebody in there that you can tell is trying too hard, that was this case today. He was annoying. He was just trying way too hard. And you either have it or you don't. And I thought Clint had it, and it didn't come across that way today. I think one thing that NASCAR needs to take from IMSA, because IMSA, you're mentioning, Mason, that it's perfect and it's a great standard for broadcasting. I don't particularly like IMSA radios lead commentator. I find his British draw very distracting and very hard to listen to. But what is one thing that they show fantastic in IMSA is they show battles throughout the field. And once again, the camera work was god awful in this event. It had moments where you were like, oh, that's great, but then it completely missed something else. And you are like, Fox is the one broadcasting this. They're the ones that are supposed to be showcasing the product, and then they miss Ryan Blaney being upset. They miss some of these battles they're talking about on the commentary. They're talking about it. Now, what was so good, if I take like G-Force, for example, when they talk about something, you can already see everything going on. And then they cut to things. They cut afterwards. But for them not to even get Ryan Blaney being upset, yes, Mason, they are a NASCAR production. But again, it's a completely different race director, completely different broadcast team. So again, IMSA is its own thing. It's not run like it's a NASCAR production, but it's not the guys from NASCAR that are running that, right? So if it were me, the worst part about that, this whole thing was the driver intros. That was, I don't know who it was that they were throwing to, but he had no excitement at all. And he was talking about this long statistics stuff that I don't know if they were trying to be funny. I don't know what they were talking about. Strong Kid, I think they threw everything but the kitchen sink today. Was almost too much, but I understand they were risking a lot. And why do you have every? Yes, you're absolutely okay. Yes, the lighting of the torch. This is a race. This isn't the Olympics. Like, I don't understand how that, again, if it meant a lot to people that were there at the LA Coliseum when the Olympics were there, then yeah, it makes sense. But to somebody like me, it made no sense whatsoever. I'm there to watch a race. I want to hear that excitement. I want to see the drivers be introduced. And one of the things that I was talking about, I actually mentioned this on Twitter, was where was Adam Ross? Like, we needed somebody who, because Adam Ross, if you guys don't know, does NASCAR Penny Series broadcast. He does a lot of stuff for G-Force TV. And one thing that I really love about when he does driver introductions is he mentions the sponsors and he mentions the car, the number. They didn't do any of that for the driver introductions. You couldn't really hear the guy because he wasn't really excited. Then they had to walk down a friggin' ton of stairs. And all I kept thinking was that gif from Family Guy where Peter falls down the stairs and all he does is swear. Because how awful would it be if Kyle Larson tripped and rolled his ankle or broke his ankle going down those stairs? Like, they should make it old school, have the drivers beside their cars on the track and introduce them that way from the back to the front. Then they're already in a central position. All your cameras are already there. All the fans are looking at the same spot. It was a really odd place for them to put the concert and for them to put the driver intros, because it was so high up, yet everything that people would probably want to be paying attention to is on the track. I understand the room or whatever, but Gus Johnson, okay, he's a college football guy, great with football, cringy. Yeah. It was not good. I mean, it was flat as flat can be. And I mean, it did seem like the crowd was a little into it, but what was cool is that there were audible crowd noises tonight, which, I mean, it's been a long time since we've heard that. You got to go back to the early broadcasts at Bristol when you could actually legitimately hear when drivers start your engines. Like that whole, if you guys remember earlier, and they did the Grand Marshals, that was a disaster as well. That looked awful because they were calling people and then nobody came out. And then the guy kept talking and Jeff Gordon came out, and then he was a person behind when people were coming out. And then their headliner, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, wasn't able to come, so it made it look even worse. So it, you know, like I said, there's production stuff that they really need to work on. But again, that aside, do I think that there's more racing? I'm curious what you guys think that we should be doing. Is this the type of track that NASCAR should be going to on the regular, or is this a once a year exhibition race event? Now, I'm of the belief if they went to Delaware Speedway here in Ontario, they would sell it out. They would pack the place to the rafters, and they would put one hell of a show on. Do I feel that NASCAR's decisions when it comes to what makes a track eligible are a little too high? Yes. I think there's so many tracks out there that could benefit from this event. Do I think that going to the LA Coliseum is the choice that they should be making? Here's what I would do. And this is, something that I wouldn't be shocked if they potentially look at. I think there's a lot of other people within the racing world that kind of question why LA. Obviously, the LA market is something that you can market. Obviously, you've got Hollywood. That's the biggest thing that NASCAR could take advantage of. Having actors and actresses being part of the festivities is always something to draw attention to it. We've seen it with Formula One. We've seen it with IndyCar. You need to get a little bit more of that in the NASCAR side of things. If they're going to go this route, I wouldn't mind if they keep it here at the LA Coliseum for the Clash. But the All-Star race needs to, the Texas needs to go away. We can't keep doing that. That doesn't work. That speedway sucks. It's just an awful, awful deal. I don't know why they thought going there would be a great solution. I think what you do is you make this being this will be the Clash, and then a highlighted short track across America and Canada and I'm saying Canada and Mexico if they really want to go back to Mexico. Just keep it within this side of the world for now. Not saying that I don't want to see international racing in the future. It would be great to, but I would like to see them rotate. Let's just say that they went to say Irwindale. I'm not suggesting that that's the track they would actually go to, but choose Irwindale for the All-Star race. And then you switch it out and you go to South Boston. And then you switch and then you go to New Smyrna, or then you switch and you go to Delaware. Make it the All-Star race something important. Because the Clash, as they heard today, $1.9 million to win. That's more than what they used to tout for the All-Star race. You win $1 million. That was the whole deal for the All-Star race. Well, the Clash now pays more. I don't know if it still makes $1 million, if you still win $1 million for the All-Star race, but clearly the Clash they put way more effort into than they have the All-Star race. They wouldn't give it to Texas Motor Speedway if they cared more about the All-Star race. Strong Out Kid, I'm okay with these one-off tracks if it brings more fans to sport. Well, and that's a great point. But the one thing that they were saying on the broadcast that they have no facts of is they said something like 80% haven't seen, or 60% or something like that have never seen an NASCAR race. How do they know that? They have no idea who's watched a race and who hasn't. No idea. But what I did see, a lot of women in the crowd, a lot of young people in the crowd. That's good for business. I'm curious to see what the ratings are for today. It'll be interesting. It's Sunday. It was prior to football. Do I think that it's going to blow everybody out of the water? No. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy. I hope it'll be. But this is the one thing that I kind of said. It's kind of like pro wrestling, where pro wrestling try, like especially WWE, they try to talk about how much they bring in new fans and how much they do this. Listen, people are going to like what they're going to like. And if somebody's decided that they don't like racing, that they don't like racing. It's not a slight to them. It's just that's the reality. Um, it's like with people with stick and ball sports. Population Canada lives in California. I understand why they're really pushing that market. All-Star Race should go to the Charlotte dirt track. I think place is only used one time a year. If it goes back to Charlotte in general, I would love it. Phil, they need a big halftime show each and every time. If they're going to California, they absolutely do, Phil. That there's no doubt about it. They have to, because that's going to bring people to the track. I think if you go to the All-Star Race as well, same situation. You need to have this. You need to have a big halftime event. I understand that there's going to be a lot of traditionalists that don't like that, but the reality is more bang for your buck. Mason, I mean, I've had this conversation with you many a time, and I talk about it so much. People want something for their ticket revenue. People want something in their ticket. I don't want to go see a Pinty's race, for example. I want to go see one race. That's what the Cup Series is really known for, is being the one race. No. If I'm doing this next year, the Clash, I'm bringing ARCA and I'm bringing a smaller division. That's what I'm doing, because I don't want to go and see one race for however much it is. They need to add more to it. You need to have merchandise. You need to have celebrities. You need to have legends. If they did a Legends race and Legends cars, that would be wicked. They talked about it today in that race, how Tony Stewart would love to be behind the wheel. Okay, well, why not? Get Tony Stewart, get Carl Edwards, get Greg Biffle, get Matt Kenseth, get Mark Martin, get the Labonis, get Dale Earnhardt Jr., put him in Legends cars, have him run around, and make a 50-lap race out of it. Unique. Interesting. A little bit different. Then you add a little ARCA race in between. And then you put the big boys on. Make a full weekend of it. Make it worth your while. Strong Kid, yeah, true. I don't think it will be crazy ratings, but it's a Clash. Exactly. I've been watching NASCAR for about 3 years. Welcome aboard. And have missed every Clash because I forgot that it's on. I know my view isn't the only one. No, I'll tell you, man, I think the Clash is, for the longest time, I still kind of, I mean, even with this, I think the Clash is the most useless race out there. There's no point for it. But if they're using it for a marketing opportunity for the rest of the season to try and bring in a new market, bring in new fans, and more specifically, bring in new sponsorship, then yeah, I'm okay with this. The one thing that they tend to forget is you can see car sponsors a lot easier on a short track than you can on a big track. It's going so fast. Short tracks, you can see every sponsor that was on those cars today. Giving that airtime to those sponsors is extremely important. But to me, like you said, I don't feel like we need an all-star race. I don't feel like we need a Clash. We've never needed it. We don't need it. But I understand why they do it. It's similar to like the All-Star race and the skills challenge, or All-Star race, the All-Star game and the skills challenge and all that type of stuff. I'm shocked that they haven't done that here. Now, longtime NASCAR fans, you're new, you said, Strong Out Kids, so you definitely need to check this on YouTube. But one of the things that made All-Star race weekend fun was they had other events. And the best event that we had on for years with Speed Channel was the All-Star Pit Crew Challenge. And if you haven't seen that, Strung Out Kid, go check it out on YouTube, because it is a lot of fun. It's something that they don't do anymore, and it sucks because it would have been perfect to do here because it's a short track, so they could have done it there. And it was a lot of fun because you got to see the pit crews do their thing. Now, obviously, in NASCAR nowadays, it's going to be changed because that's not going to be as much of a thing. Pit stops aren't as big of a deal. Tickets were about $65, I believe. The 70% number was a question on a Ticketmaster. Oh, was it? Okay. I wasn't sure where they got that number from. Thanks, man. Definitely, yeah, definitely check it out. There was another one even before that, Strung Out Kid. Now, I don't know if it was All-Star. It may not have been for the All-Star break, but it was the Clevite Engine Builder Showdown. And they had team members from certain teams. So they had like EHR, I believe, and Hendrick Motorsports, or ECR, Hendrick Motorsports. And they had to build an engine, and it would be timed, and they would have a winner. And it was wicked. Like they put on really cool competitions, and it made it worth the weekend. And that's what I'm saying. If they make something of this clash, then make it a full weekend of events. Get people really pumped up for the season. I put it on Twitter, like, why not get the Xfinity guys racing on the Saturday? Like, make that their first race of the season instead of Daytona's speed weeks. I mean, listen, how many cars are going to show up for Daytona in 2 weeks for the Xfinity series? Okay. How many cars are going to show up there? Right. Well, they don't have a duels. They don't have the Gatorade duels. They just have pure qualifying to make it into the race. Well, why not have heats and have LCQs that will actually mean something? Make this weekend the race to make it into the Daytona Xfinity race. And you have to go through some heats and qualify like an LCQ to make the event. I mean, you think that the Cup guys are crazy? Jeez, you get some of those Xfinity guys going around that track, man. They have no problem dumping each other, pushing each other out of the way. And if they have to do it to make the Daytona race for the Xfinity series, hell, that would be one hell of a show to put on right before the Cup series. Now, the problem is that NASCAR's Cup series gets shown up quite often by the Xfinity series. I think it's kind of the common theme now. But again, it's all about giving the fans something that is more than just the main event. If I'm going to spend $65 on a race ticket, it better not be for 150 laps, right? I'm going to see a couple heats, and I'm going to see qualifying. I'm going to see practice. You have to be able to showcase everything, not just the race. And it was awful to see, actually, that the heats, there was no one there. There was no one there. They all showed up for the main event because, it's still, maybe it's a new market, and maybe they had trouble getting people in. You really don't know kind of what the situation was, but they definitely need to consider that. You have to consider making a full effort for a full day event, a full weekend event. If they're going to continue the clash being every week or every year, that's the way to do it in my book. You have to make the ticket worth it, and you have to have something that people will come back to. The one thing that they're going to face is, okay, if somebody's never been to a NASCAR race and they saw this today, the finish wasn't great. It was anticlimactic. The rest of the event was, again, it was okay. But if you're looking at it from an outsider point of view, was it really interesting? I mean, the first thing that Blake Shelton said, the first thing he said when he was on there was that, oh, his kid loved it because there was a lot of crashes. That's what interests people, right? I think that's why they created this. Now, obviously, you build this event up so it gets a lot more hype for next year. And it very well could have a role going forward in the NASCAR Cup Series. But again, in my opinion, you've got it. It's like the Daytona 500 weekend. You've got to build around it. So you got Daytona. Well, have a race like they have ARCA next week at New Smyrna Speedway. That's what you got to do. Mason, I'm going to challenge what you say there. The one day show the Pinty series puts on are a good format and bang for your buck. Yes, but also they have to make sure that they do at least one or two other races with it, because to me, just having the Pinty series is not enough. You have to showcase some other racing, whether it's local, whether it's the super stocks, whether it's the Ontario Sportsman Series. Give it a companion event, because it just mixes it up. It gives a little bit of time. One of the things that we had last year, Mason, I don't know if you remember, but we had that long break. And if they didn't have the super stock race in between, it would be for a long time that we'd have to wait. Phil, it's like watching Jake Paul. Oh, Jesus, Jake Paul. It's all about promoting the sport for. Okay, I'm not a Jake Paul fan, but what you bring out here is an amazing point. Okay, 1,000 people out there might not know who the hell Jake Paul. Thousands and thousands might not know who Jake Paul is, but a lot of other people that have never seen boxing do, and they want to see his face get caved in. So that's a great way to promote it. It's exactly it. So it's about making this and promoting it for more fans. Now, again, if you add in those Legends races, if you add in something else, it's going to make it worthwhile. Do I think that Ice Cube and Pitbull were going to appeal to this year, the new generation? No, probably not. But it's a start. I think if they're able to get some future stars, some really hot acts, that's the way to go about it. Obviously, you had Blake Shelton there. One thing that I really appreciated was that they didn't cater to one specific group this week, and they catered to anybody and everybody. And I really appreciate that. Now, I think heading into next year, does it need to be the exact same? No, it doesn't. The SRX, perfect example right there, Strung Out Kid. Perfect example. The only problem is that SRX doesn't start their season until like June, and it's a summer series, and it's on CBS. So unfortunately, they're not going to ever work together. I'm pretty sure that that's not going to happen. But I love the idea. It's a perfect idea. Hell, you could add ARCA. ARCA only has like 16 cars as it is. It would have been perfect. I mean, like I said, if you add in Legends running around, you have friggin' Tony Stewart and Clint Boyer, instead of being in the booth, they're running out in a Legends car. Make it fun. Bring the wheel and modifieds. That's what you got to do. Michael Jordan and Mayweather can help promote as NASCAR owners. They absolutely can, and they need to. The whole NASCAR being a thing for white rednecks is done. That's not what needs to happen. The reality is we are a multicultural world. We're a world with people with all different orientations, all different races, all different genders. It is not meant for just one type of fan anymore, because that one type of fan wasn't keeping it alive. They realized the error of their ways, and they're starting to make those changes, and getting somebody like Michael Jordan, getting Floyd Mayweather, getting Pitbull. Those are big changes. They are perfect for this series. Now, I'm waiting to see another Beth Ann Morgenthau. Now, if anybody knows who Beth Ann Morgenthau was, please let me know in the comments, because I'm very curious how many of you guys actually know who that is. Mason might know who Beth Ann Morgenthau was, but she did something that they desperately need. And I think that they will eventually get it, but it's something that we need to see. Betty Clemenco in the V8 supercars is another one. Beth Peretta in IndyCar. A female ownership group. We need to see it. Show NASCAR that they can have as many different types of owners as possible, not just old, rich white men. But I like the idea of having somebody like Michael Jordan in there, Floyd Money Mayweather. Now, do I think that Floyd is as involved as Michael is? No, I don't believe he is. I believe originally, now you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think the original plan was Floyd Mayweather was licensing his name and his brand, but he wasn't actually involved in the actual team. So it's I'm not sure if that's changed. It's still kind of iffy on that side of things. But hell, if they can get some success with those guys coming on board, that's what you got to do. There's a lot more celebrities that like racing. There's a lot of celebrities that would be perfect as owners. There's a lot of people I think that this could be a trickle down effect, because when you get somebody of that caliber that can be a team owner, then it brings more into the series for interest. Now, it's not the first sports owner we've had. Obviously, you go back, Terry Bradshaw was involved as a team owner. And you had Randy Moss, who had a truck team for many years. Troy Aikman was part of I can't remember, Roger Staubach, team owners of, legendary status. And now, of course, Jesse Iwuji this year has Emmett Smith as part of his team. So it's not unheard of. Brittany Force helping the NHRA, perfect example. Now, it's not about having a female driver, but having a female presence as an owner. Unfortunately, Beth Ann Morgenthal's team was not very, very good. It didn't last very long, but it was important. And I would love to see, and I don't know if there is a woman that's going to come up and be a female team owner in NASCAR. I don't know if we're at that point yet. I'm hoping that we'll eventually get to that point, but right now, we still don't even have a female driver that is in line to be successful. I mean, we can say that Hailie Deegan is, but is she? It's kind of hard to say. I mean, we don't really know. This is kind of, I feel, her year, like make it or break it type of thing. It was her first year last year, but it is still going to be a work in progress. So things are exciting on the NASCAR side. Obviously, they're making lots of changes, and we are here for it on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast. Week in and week out, we will be covering all sorts of NASCAR and racing across Canada. We will also, of course, be featuring stuff here and there with American and foreign racing. But what you can know is that we will be here all year long. This is our very first live stream. We will be back for live streams the week of the Daytona 500. We'll be here for the truck race, for the Xfinity race, and then the Cup race Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with live streams after the events, possibly during. Just depends on how those events go. Like I said, we're not the biggest fans of the plate racing nowadays, but it is the first event of those race seasons. So obviously we'll be there week in and week out. On Tuesdays, you will also see our weekly interview episodes, and we have a very exciting one coming up this week. On Tuesday is our interview with Ray Evernham of SRX. Formerly of SRX. He'll explain everything with us then. We had co-host Olivia Whistle on board with us for that event, for that episode. We also have episodes with Ryan Vargas, the boys from Driver in Deep, and a season preview episode that will take place all in the month of February. And then we'll hopefully get some more of our Canadian racers back on board in March. And then, of course, we get ready for our race seasons here in Canada starting in May. So we'll hopefully have some shop tours for you and some more on-track action starting May 14th at Sunset Speedway. That is our very first Pinty Series event, which we hope to be at. And we're very excited this year to be attending more than 10 events spread throughout the summer. It'll be a very fun time across the Ontario Sportsman Series, Super Stocks, APC Series, and NASCAR Pinty Series. We hope to be to at least more than 2 events of all those series. And obviously we'll be there and definitely come and say hello and chat racing with us. If you are new to the channel, definitely like, subscribe, and come on back. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we are on Instagram. Cam K and Graydon Bunn here each week talking motorsports, but that is going to do it for us tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciated chatting with all you guys, and have yourselves a wonderful night. Racing is back in 2022.